decide to spend the late Sunday afternoon with all of you. You all know who we are and what we are about, so I do not feel the need to restate that for you. But I do feel the need to remind you that these practices that we're about to do together are intentional, and every one of them hopefully are helping to remind us who we are and how we are connected and how we are responsible. And so nothing is just for the sake of doing it. Hopefully you're just reminded that it's all intentional. So thanks for being here, and I'm gonna pass it off to JJ.
All right, hello everybody. I am going to start us off with our naming practice, and just as a reminder that it's an opportunity to show up and take up space, to not shrink and just say, I am here and I am part of all of this and connected and we're responsible to each other, all of that. So I'll start off and you know, we've all done this before of the people who are here. So I'm JJ, go by he, him, and I'm in Nashville. And Melissa, why don't we go to all of your crew? So everybody is with you. There, you can name yourselves.
Love it. Okay, I'm Melissa. Hi, y'all. I want to repeat that I am here and choosing to take up my space and my space only this afternoon. We are all on my lovely covered porch here in Franklin, and I'm she, her, hers.
Hi, Cindy, in Franklin, she, her.
Hi, I'm Erin. Obviously, I'm in Franklin too. She, her, and this is Liam.
Hi.
He, him, I think. Unless he tells me otherwise.
Moving around. Looky over there.
Hello. Ben, he, him. You're gonna see if I'm in there.
You're in there.
Rick.
Yay! Rick, or AKA Hoppy. Yay, we're all here.
Nice. Thank you for taking up that space. Abby.
Hello, Abby, she, her, and I'm in Tacoma, Washington.
Nice, very nice. Nathan.
Nathan, he, him, Lebanon, Tennessee.
Malia.
Malia, she, her, Brentwood, Tennessee.
Hauser.
That's me. That's Chris. He, him in Brentwood. Linda here is on her way. She goes by whatever. That's what she says every week. So there you go.
Sarah.
I'm Sarah. She, her, from Nashville.
Randy.
I'm Randy. I'm currently in Antioch, back here in Nashville. Could change at any moment. Also want to bring to the attention he, him, and that Liam is drinking a Dr. Pepper and that Ben is scared of my team. That's all I had to say.
Benjamin.
Hey, Ben, he, him, his, coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana.
And Megan.
Hi, Megan Moss, she, her, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yay. Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy everybody's here. And thank you for participating and practicing with us of naming and taking up our space, and not too much space, but all of us showing up and being present for each other. So wonderful. And now I will pass it on to, who do I pass it on to? Sarah?
Me, Nathan.
Oh, Nathan, there you go. So Nathan is next.
Yes, so we'll be doing the practice, which comes with the theme song, and it just goes something like this. Tell me something good. All right, so if you have something good to say, offer up, either raise your hand in the thing, which is where I will see you, or raise it in the video, and if someone can see that that's happening, just let me know and we'll unmute you and offer that up.
I'll raise my hand. I had a surprise party 2 days ago. My birthday was like more than a month ago, but I was out of town. And so some friends decided to throw I was very surprised party, since it was over a month after my birthday. And I have I'm a little obsessed with the Olympics, so I'm so sad right now that's not happening. And I'm also love all things mini, just anything mini, small things. And so that was the theme of the party. It was mini things. So there was like corn dogs and mini tacos and bagel bites, and then they did Olympic themes. So there was blow up torches and medals and flags, and then we watched the Beijing opening ceremonies. And so I was pretty much close to tears the whole time. So it was a pretty magical, it was a very joyful experience. So it was fun.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I'll go.
All right.
There are a number of people in the music industry who have gotten hit by COVID in the last couple of weeks. Some artists and also close friends who are industry people. And one friend named Grant was in ICU for 4 days, 5 days, and then in a regular hospital room. He's out, he's home, he's quarantining, but I'm thankful for that. Also, I'm on a couple of text threads where we kind of share political memes back and forth. If you know anything about me, you know where those memes lean and lie. And I got caught up in sending out some memes on Friday about Herman Cain, and I got called out by a friend who said, man, I can see differing with someone's politics, but to actually rejoice in someone's death is really harsh and very low. And I didn't define it as rejoicing in someone's death, but it was definitely snarky and ugly. And I felt so convicted. I know that's like an old Christian term, but I was so overcome I had a crappy day all day Friday because of just going like, yeah, I'm thankful for a friend who would speak his piece, speak his part to me and speak his truth to me. And so I've realized I've just gotten way caught up in social media and politics over the last few weeks. And so I have been on a fast of Instagram and Facebook this weekend, and I just feel so much more peace. And I know I go through these seasons, but I just feel very more lighthearted and clear-minded this weekend. And so I don't know, hopefully I can ease back, if anything, into it this next week and not go full bore. So I'm thankful.
Awesome. Melissa?
I love that, Chris. I was just reading two different people that I follow closely on social media also just posted about doing a fast, like an extended fast, and how beneficial it was. And I was contemplating that too. So I feel like you're the third person, and it's like, oh yeah, universe is like, yeah, fast away. It's time. So thank you for saying that. I just feel good. I don't know. I feel especially good seeing all of your faces today. And also that sort of some of my closest people are here literally in my home with me. We're going to go on a walk, if the rain holds off, and then eat dinner together. And I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for community, whether it's online like this, and actually seeing people like not behind a mask, right? When we're out and about and you see people, but you can only see eyes and you're trying to like, I don't know if you're feeling, sometimes we walk people, it's like the walk of shame. Nobody wants to look each other in the eye. And other times I feel like people are longing to like look people in the eyes. So anyways, I'm grateful this afternoon for all of you and for all of them.
I'll go. Basically, since quarantine happened, I decided to get a certification in trauma-informed yoga, specifically working with children. And I passed as of this past week, or, finished everything that I needed to do. And I'm very excited because my school is super open to that. I'll be able to teach like once a week with students from all over my school and our other sister school. So I'm just really pumped about that. It's something new that totally stretched me out of my comfort zone. And I never thought I'd be able to really do that. And so I just, something good.
Awesome. I know Malia had her hand up.
So my husband with the anniversary this past week and weekend. And this morning we headed out, left the hotel where we stayed last night, and we were, I guess, I'll try and make this short as possible, but we had been looking at a book that was in the hotel room about Nashville, and it mentioned these polar bear sculptures, statues in Edge Hill, which we had never heard of. Like, we've lived here 23 years, and we're like, okay, we got to go find these polar bears. And so then we were like, so we went and we saw them and we took some pictures, and then we were wondering, just driving around, like, what are we going to do? And we realized that we were close to where Kelly and David Aronoff live. So I texted Kelly and I'm like, hey, are you home? And she's like, yeah, we are. And I was like, can we stop by for like a socially distanced hello? And she's like, yeah, come on over. So we went and we got to spend, I don't know, like an hour and a half in their backyard. We sat, far apart, chairs and masks and everything, but it was just so delightful to like Melissa, like you were saying, just to be in person with people that we don't just normally get to see, just how it all worked out, because David has been, working, and usually he wouldn't even have been available to hang out on a Sunday morning. He would have been on calls and stuff, but it happened to be that he took this weekend off, and so it all just worked out so well. And I was just, I don't know, it was just a really nice ending to this weekend that we had, to be able to hang out with people that we love. So
Awesome. Abby.
I'll go. So last week, yesterday, I got home from a vacation with my family. So we got to go to just to the beach and have a little social distanced vacation, just with us. And it was really refreshing, and it's fun being in a new place and like exploring, like, oh, that's like Canada across the water, and just like being in a different place and getting to be by the water and the mountains, and just spend some uninterrupted time without working with my family. So really thankful for that. And last week I also had a promising job interview, so I'm still on the job hunt, which is not going great, but I had an interview last week, so I'm trying to celebrate that and being cautiously optimistic about what that could look like. So very thankful to have some kind of movement in the job world. So that's been good.
Awesome. I can share. We got a cat about a week ago, and the cat is still surviving and thriving, in fact. So it's fun to have her in the house, and the kids are still kind of figuring out that she's not a dog, but hopefully they'll catch on and that'll go better. And then today we were able to go for a walk around Long Hunter, at the lake at Long Hunter State Park, which was a lot of fun. So it was good to get out with the kids and kind of, like you said, Melissa, it's sometimes doing that kind of walk of shame where you don't make eye contact. But about midway through, I started to kind of buck the trend on that, so which was fun. Anyone else? Megan Moss.
Hey, I had Eric and I had our 11th anniversary on yesterday, and that was great. And also, Kate Moore asked me to write the body email for this coming up Monday, so I'm really excited about that.
Awesome.
I have one more. Sorry. It was Hachi's 14th birthday, y'all. I have a 14. We have a 14-year-old, which is crazy. And he actually went to the beach this week with his friend Logan because, as most of you know, I think Hutch tested positive for COVID early last month, although he never had symptoms. but once he was in the clear, we're like, you're safe. You can go have fun for a little bit while the rest of us have to stay wise. But anyways, I can't believe we have a 14-year-old, and I want to celebrate that and him. So we'll see him this Thursday.
Amazing. Anybody else? All right, I will pass it over to Sarah to do our land practice.
Yeah, so we want to take a moment to just acknowledge the land, and knowing that is a way of healing, of beginning to heal and imagining better ways of living and being in our world. And so we want to acknowledge the erasure of the indigenous peoples of this land, to acknowledge that this was once inhabited by the Shawnee people in Nashville, which is now we know as Nashville. And then also thinking about August is a new month and how we're still in summer, and just this idea how creation encourages us to slow down, how summer is a month of slowing down, that's open and free, and how we can be open to more ideas of rest, creative rest, and how that can expand our ideas of creativity and what it means overall, what it means to rest. So I just encourage you to let's align with creation this month as we start anew, and enjoy this gorgeous weather. It's normally sweltering right now, but it's beautiful, and we thank creation for that. So.
All right, next we're going to do our anti-racism acknowledgement. So we as a community recognize that white supremacy and systemic racism are an insidious part of our society. Intentional or not, we recognize the harmful impact of its presence in our lives and the impact it has on Black, Indigenous, and people of color members of this community and other communities around us. We commit ourselves to an active practice of anti-racism. We commit to rooting out and addressing racism whenever and wherever we find it, starting within each of us, but extending into our communities and the greater world around us. So I think with that, I'll turn it back over to Haven or Melissa, who will be running the.
Actually, me. We're missing our fearless leader, Haven.
Excellent.
She has chosen to be outside and play, and I support her in that choice this afternoon. I want to lead us in our final practice, though, our embodiment practice, and tell you guys a little story first before we do it. I was with Haven, and her one of her dance friends came to stay the night with us, and she ended up having an anxiety attack in the middle. It's around 11 o'clock. I was already asleep, and Haven came and woke me up, and so I went to her in the bathroom, and she was crying and very upset. So I sat with her and Have for a few minutes until she felt comfortable, the girl, telling me how she was feeling and what she was processing. So we just sat for a few minutes and then made our way back to bed. And then before we went to bed, though, she was asking questions about Imaginarium, which I just loved. And I was trying to explain to her a little bit about what we do and how we're not a church, but we're not against church. We're not against God and all these things. But Haven said, oh, I really think that this would help you if we taught you this little practice. And so Haven went on to teach Gracie, Stop, Breathe, Know Your Worth. And we did that together, and it helped her calm down. And I just loved it. So as a reminder, all of these things are intentional and hopefully useful, not only for our kids, but for all of us. So with that said, put our hands together and intentionally remember that this is for you to literally touch your body, to feel your body, to be reminded of your body and how worthy it is just as it is. So we tap our fingers together, thumb to pinky, and say, stop, breathe, know your worth. Again, stop, breathe, know your worth. One more time. Stop, breathe, know your worth. Thank you to all of our friends who led us this afternoon. So I was having a conversation the other day. I got to sit down with Erica Burnett, who some of you know. She's been in to teach us and lead us before. And I was just having a friend lunch with her, socially distanced, out on a patio. And in the midst of it, I was talking to her, sort of friend to friend, describing some feelings that I was having in this season. Feelings of being inadequate, feelings of what does success look like during this season, literally in the midst of the pandemic, but what does success, hi Linda, so glad you're joining us. What does success look like for Imaginarium? I'm always telling her that I was just trying to play out like, what is success? Is it in high numbers on Zoom calls? Is it who's being affected? Is it who's being encouraged? All of these things. And really talking about too personally how I measure my days and how I measure what's been a fruitful and successful day. And she immediately stopped me and she reminded me, she said, you're doing, Melissa, exactly what you can and what you should be. And her should in that moment was meant like a gentle should, not an exacting should or a demanding use of the word should, right? But how I interpreted what she went on to say was that she was saying all of this idea of measuring up to something and measuring being a way where we deem what is successful is a part of patriarchy. She said, and as much as you fight patriarchy, like out loud online and what you do and what you say, it also is just seeping into your mind and has seeped into your mind in ways that you can't even imagine. And she said, it's affecting you. It's affecting your thought process here right now. And I want to mirror that back to you. She said, the idea that success equates to only high numbers is patriarchy. The idea that success equates to only high output is patriarchy. She said, and we're swimming in it daily. And she just simply wanted to be a mirror for that. So all of that resonated with me immediately. I almost teared up, and she went on to say some other lovely, encouraging things as good friends do. But it sent me off on a trajectory of researching sort of all the things that I thought I knew about patriarchy and some things maybe that I didn't realize that I knew. And I decided, hey, we should probably discuss it together, at least today and maybe moving forward for a couple gatherings. I was really interested in the not so obvious ways that it affects all of us, right? And I also came upon a word which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. I was not familiar with, but it's the word kyriarchy. And that is a word by Elizabeth Schuler Ferenza. She coined the term. And kyriarchy is a term that extends patriarchy to encompass and connect to other structures of oppression and privilege, such as racism, ableism, and capitalism, etc. It basically, the term kyriarchy recognizes that there are overlapping and complicated power strata. It takes intersections into account. So with either word we want to talk about today and use, we're talking about how these systems affect every single one of us in both large and subtle ways. So I want to start with the obvious by way as maybe a refresher for some. Early on, patriarchy was defined as a system that divides everything into that which is male and female, and it privileges then the former over the latter. Patriarchy is a system and a vessel to keep power. That is political, economic, and institutional power. To keep wealth, and to keep status in the hands of men. The Asian Pacific Institute on Gender-Based Violences defines patriarchy as a system for maintaining class, gender, racial, and heterosexual privilege and the status quo of power, relying both on crude forms of oppression, like violence, and subtle ones like laws to perpetuate inequality. Patriarchal beliefs of male heterosexual dominance and the devaluation of girls and women lie. There's a motorcycle going by. I'm going to wait a second. A couple of them. The devaluation of girls and women lie at the root of then gender-based violence. Patriarchy then is a structural force that influences power relations, whether they are abusive or not, end quote. So the word patriarchy, it literally means the rule of the father. That is the ancient Greek definition. It not only implies the rule, though, of family, thinking of father and systems, it also perpetuated then an entire system of oppression built on misogyny and, sadly, further, the exploitation and brutalization of women. But also, the system and our understanding of it is complex. It is multi-layered and it is intertwined. Better yet, it is intersectional. We talked about this before. Intersectional is the word defined first by Kimberly Crenshaw, a Black woman in 1989. Intersectionality then is concerned with the social order that privileges and oppresses people based on race, gender, language, class, sexual orientation, disability culture, and so on. Thus the need, and maybe why I said earlier, the need of also talking about kyriarchy. It's trying to take us to that next level of how this all affects us. So that means then it's not just about male versus female as we first began to understand the problem, but it's the continual realization of how this system that we live and breathe in every day, as Erica reminded me, that this system is set up so that we have to compete for an understanding of our own worth. Okay, let me say that again. It is a system that is set up to teach us, to tell us that we have to compete daily for an understanding of what we are worth. That we have been pitted against one another in a game of survival, not of the fittest, but of an antiquated idea that whites and straights and adult males are not only our benchmark for what is most normal, but they're also our benchmark for then what is most celebrated and should be then awarded. So then we can understand how ideas of patriarchy and kyriarchy have and continue to affect not just us as individuals, but our government and our laws, our workplaces, our homes. And then I'd also add, it affects our mirrors. It literally affects how we see ourselves and how we understand our own worth, which again is what Erica was trying to get me back to in that lunch conversation. So we can see that patriarchy and all of its unhealthy companions, racism, homophobia, transphobia, fat phobia, ableism, xenophobia, right? All of them, they're all upheld then by powerful cultural norms and supported then by traditions, by our educational system, by religions that continue to perpetuate male, white, straight dominance. And to name, please, for our males, our lovely males who are in this space with us, that patriarchy and kyriarchy affects all of us, and it is upheld in various ways by all of us. So there are no bad guys, right? Well, there are some. There are some. And if we probably started a list, we might have the same names on our list, but that's not the point. The point is, by definition, you being male does not mean you are bad, right? And I think we know that, but I want to clarify that and clarify that that's what we're saying officially too with Imaginarium. You being male does not mean that you are the enemy. But with my initial research this week, I read, and Ben and I had a couple conversations about it, and I just started reminding myself and realizing how we're all internalizing patriarchy without even fully realizing it. That we push aside too often our best judgment and our intuitions and sacrifice our needs in order to too often fall in line, in order to fall in line and then suppress and try to conform how we should behave or how we should be thinking. And we do this, I think, because we fear by not falling in line or by choosing to go against the stream of what is seen as normal, and I put that in quotations, we then risk isolation, right? And ultimately, none of us want that. None of us want to be isolated from each other or from the whole even. And so we think we have to do things or say things or live in such a way to fit in. So instead, we've tended to settle into the categories of then what should be. And that use of should is different than I mentioned. Erica said, Melissa, you should earlier. This should is demanding. This should is closed-minded. This should represents a tight box, if you will, telling us again, we have to conform to a certain standard of being instead of being given space to actually become what we have the capacity to be as individuals and collectively too. So the should list, and this list isn't exhaustive, and this list may be triggering for some, so I want to at least state that before I start. The should list says, patriarchy and kyriarchy says there is and should be a clear separation then between male and female. That means then, for example, there is no spectrum of gender represented, right? There is no room then for our trans and non-binary friends in humanity. The is and should then, there are clear roles of what is male and what is female. Male should protect, they should lead, they should work hard, they should shoulder the weight of providing for the families. Male should not give in to their emotions. In fact, they should suppress emotions. This also leads then to a lack of allowing for empathy. Males should not need relationships outside of marriage, that is, outside of marriage to a female specifically. And of course, that female is feeding for them reproductive needs and helping, right, fuel monogamy. But otherwise, male should not need other relationships, not friendships, not a deeper intimacy outside of that one partner. Males should control all the things. Males should be fighters. Now females should be subservient. They should comply. They should work to please. They should flatter, gratify, and entertain males. They should provide children. They should care for the family. They should care for the home. They should bear the emotional weight of the family and the relationship, right, with the husband or the spouse. Females should not fight. Females, although expected to have emotions, are then often not respected because they are deemed too emotional. Females should not be assertive, and the list goes on, right? So patriarchy says that we, and this goes for all of us, the collective we, that we are not supposed to be allowed to step outside of these predetermined boxes. And the problem is that we've all been taught to survive then in this system, that all we're supposed to be doing is survive in this system, and we are not taught nor allowed or been given permission to be ourselves. That we have succumbed then to limited ranges of our experiences, and that, I believe, has resulted in a diminished existence as our humanity. Ultimately, we're not being allowed to live, and we're not being allowed to thrive. So the ways I want to ask all of us today is to become further aware in a non-shaming way of how we have allowed this, of how we have perpetuated this, because again, all of us have in some way or another. We've done this in the workplace. How are we doing this in schooling? Whether we're the ones in power in schooling or the ones participating in schooling, right? How is this showing up in parenting? How is this showing up in our relationships? How is this showing up in us carrying a lens of constant competition with others versus having the lens of support and appreciation for someone else? How are we perpetuating this on a local and a national level with our votes and in our politics? And for me, and all too often in our discussions here within this space in Imaginarium, I'm finding that the underlying question is allowing space for us to truly ask ourselves, how can I live into my fullest self right now in this moment? And who do I feel like I need to ask permission from in order to do that? And then why? So how can I live into my fullest self? Who do I feel like I need to ask permission to do so? And why do I feel that need? Then we can get on to truly asking, what is it that I want in this moment? And I say that with an equal addition to pay attention and to protect ourselves from scarcity and from self-focused mentality, which is also a problem in our whole society. We also ask then and encourage, want to ask others, what is it that you actually want, right? How can you live into your fullest self? And how can I help and live into a way that helps you do so and you help me do so as well? I found a quote by this Dr. Gilligan, who wrote a book, Why Does Patriarchy Persist? I see your question, Sarah. I'm gonna come right back to that because I have my notes. Dr. Gilligan, who wrote this book, Why Does Patriarchy Persist, says, if you want to elevate one group of people over another, you have to then undercut our relational capacities as humans. You have to stop the person at the top from feeling empathy for the people at the bottom, end quote. So this is why we hold and we repeat our values here over and over and over of inherent worth and magic, yes, but also connection. We are built and believe deeply in relationships and that we as humanity are relational beings, right? So that relationship is right there next to understanding your inherent worth. And then also responsibility is there, asking what is yours and mine to do to help this world become better and all of us begin to flourish. So we have to be self-focused, better self-focused, but also other-focused as well. Dr. Gilligan also goes on to say, if patriarchy is an idealization of a past that requires silencing and lies, then radical listening is the reckoning. I love that. Radical listening then is the reckoning. That means that we don't continue perpetuating unhealthy systems that narrate and tell other people rather narrowly, right, what the human life should look like, what their life should look like, what is the norm, and how do we maintain it. No, instead we start listening to ourselves, right? To that intuition, understanding ourselves and our bodies, and we also start listening to each other. So it is less telling, less talking, and more hearing. Jerain Abujarin, I hope I pronounced her name right, who's a writer I found on this lovely feminist website. She offers some key other steps sort of in this unlearning process when we're thinking about patriarchy and all that hierarchy. And I think this is a lovely place for us to begin, or at least continue today your thinking. She says you do this, you question everything. Question everything. When we talk about this a lot here, we talk about the value of curiosity, that it should be a value of our deepest humanity, that we should be curious about things. And so question everything. She says, 2, identify contradictions and hypocrisy. And I will add, that's not only identifying contradictions and hypocrisy with others or with systems, right, that we see, but also within ourselves. It is a both and for us to pay attention when that is happening and why that is happening and how we can change it. And finally, she says, get uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable. Your comfort zone can't handle you working through your internalized oppression or facing messed up truths about yourselves or the world around you. Our comfort zone doesn't want us to do that, right? It wants us to stay where we are. It wants us to stay comfortable. But she goes on to say, in fact, it doesn't hurt to actively seek out discomfort in manageable doses. Seeking out discomfort shows us then the capacity, much like when we work out or when we exercise, you push yourself further than your body wants you, at least initially, to go. Sometimes you can overdo that, obviously. But when we push ourselves and begin to say, okay, let's lean into that discomfort, I think that's where real change and real growth happens. And so she's saying, question everything, identify contradictions and hypocrisy, and let's get uncomfortable. That's the end of what I have to offer. So before we talk, I'm going to go back and get what who was asking? Sarah, excuse me. How can I live into my fullest self?
Oh, I was just recapping your reflection questions.
Yes, you're right. That's what it is. Yes, sorry. Thank you. I couldn't read it. I just saw a question coming in. So y'all, I'm so interested. What does this bring up in you? Is any of this feel like new information? Help, Sarah's on teacher mode. Yes, she is. I love it, and it's helpful. Does any of this feel like new information? Does any of this start to push at you a little bit? Or what has your experience been in you realizing how you've either been damaged by the system and or in some ways helped perpetuate it? So the floor is open.
So some of what you were saying there, I don't know exactly where it fell in, but it reminded me of, so this book, Untamed by Glennon Doyle, she, in one of her chapters, a section that she calls keys, there's a section called Imagine, and in it, she talks almost exclusively about this question: what is the truest, most beautiful story you can tell yourself about your life? And that's how she talks to people about, when they come to her with questions about how to, handle a situation, she's like, what's the truest, most beautiful version of this that you can imagine? And that's where you'll find your answer. And I feel like that's kind of when you were saying, like, how can I live into my fullest self, and who do I need to ask permission to be? You ask yourself, and you live into your fullest self by, imagining the truest, most beautiful life that you can have. And there's your answer. And that's where you move towards.
I love that. I have that book, but I have not read it yet.
Oh, it's like my Bible now. I pick it up. I have so much underlined. I go back to it. I reread sections. Yeah, I cannot praise that book enough.
Love it. That's great. We can put that out on the recommendation too in the community page. I think that's great that you bring that up, that you're asking yourself, because I do think that's the goal, right? That we get to that, I get to give myself permission. And then there's levels though of understanding not just what's best for me, but what's best for my family, what's best for my spouse, what's best for my kids. So there's a underscore of that. But I'm interested if you've ever, or if as you think about that question, and maybe throughout the week, if you think about it more, would you feel like there is someone that is limiting, or someone who you feel like, oh, I need, like in an unhealthy way, like, oh, but my father might think this about me if I don't live in this way, or oh, my friends, or oh, my, said community, like who has been that negative, unhealthy barrier in the past maybe, or maybe currently, that's keeping you from living your fullest life? This is not a question directly to Malia. It's sparked for all of us.
I have thoughts. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I have lots of thoughts. I'm a verbal processor. For me, I really like the word kyriarchy that you mentioned. I am seeing lots of similarities, and also I'm finding it difficult to untangle dismantling patriarchy and dismantling racism and white supremacy, because they are so related. I think of things like being in touch with your emotions, or body, or community, caring about the general well-being or importance of community and connections, as opposed to like the individual, what I need, what makes me successful, as opposed to what makes us successful. I see those as a lot of like both white supremacy and patriarchy. And so I don't know, for me, the question, like seeing it with that lens, for me, the question that you asked is partially about like who are specific people who may be speaking these things into your life, but also partially like, how do I undo the assumptions I've made about myself and everything that culture is telling me? And like, what do I not know? Like, what do I not, you kind of hinted at this before, but like, what do I not know? What do I not realize is steeped in patriarchy and white supremacy? So I don't know. I think maybe for men, that means listening to women. I think for women, it means for men, I think it means listening to women, especially women of color. For white women, I think it means listening to women of color, Black women. I don't know. I don't have any real clear-cut thoughts on what that looks like or path to move forward, except just to say, I don't know. It all feels like really entangled in my mind, and I've been thinking a lot lately about unlearning the white supremacy and the racism I've learned throughout my life. And so I'm kind of in this place of like, how do I also unlearn patriarchy, which in some ways is harder because you can't really separate them, but easier because you can't really separate them. I don't know. If anyone else wants to jump in, I would love to hear other people's thoughts, because I apparently don't have any conclusions to get to. I just wanted to throw those ideas out there.
Yeah, we learn through your processing. So just know that, please. Always, I think verbal processing is beautiful. And no one's, I mean, I wish we had lots of answers, but I don't think that's the goal or the point. The point is to process and to grow together. So I think you're spot on. I mean, I think they are all entangled. I mean, period, they are. And so I appreciate you noting that and bringing that up. I would really love if any of our men in the space want to just give a response to how you're feeling, and how maybe that you've experienced this and the weight of this, not just perpetuated it unwillingly, as I feel like we all have, but I would really love to hear.
I'll talk right after she talks. You had something to say, right?
I was just going to say that I think it's not even just the people in our lives, but it is culture. I mean, Leah touched on that. And I think questioning everything is the best step, because you have to ask that question. Is this good for me? Is this good for everyone? And is this good for everyone, being not just me, white people, but is this good for everyone? Is this good for the immigrants that are coming into the country? Is this good for people of color? Is this good for, and if it's not, then it needs to be left on the question shelf of how do we remedy this, and what is my part in remedying this? Because I think so much of it is culture, and it's what we see in the media. It's what we're told, even through the sitcoms that we watch, that we don't understand. We're absorbing it. We're continually absorbing this patriarch message because it is what our culture is based in. And to flip it on its head is going to take us questioning and then working towards, and questioning and working towards, and questioning and working towards. And I don't know how it's got to start small. Just like when our body is sick, it's in certain cells of our body. And when those cells get well, then the rest of the body can start to stop responding to the sickness. And it's the same thing. We aren't going to be able to topple the patriarchy system, but we're going to be able to come up from underneath by becoming healthier individuals and spreading that health to those that are around us. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. It's good. I mean, cis, het, white, male, and Enneagram 3, and I work in an industry where I have a new report card every week that dictates my worth and value, with radio charts that come out. And so, and this has been my business since 1987. And so I understand that this is so ingrained, and it is so much a part of just how I view the world. And when even a little piece of it is threatened, how quick I am to attack or defend, or just from a competitive standpoint. And so I'm just saying it out loud. I'm just saying and confessing out loud that these are things that I've spent a lifetime dealing with various therapists over the years, and don't have easy answers. I hope ultimately I'm a more loving person now than I was 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and more loving towards myself, and more loving towards others.
Thank you both for that. I appreciate both of your insights. That reminded me, I remember when I was at Grace Point, I preached a sermon on the afterlife, which I refocused that sermon to talk about how we experience heaven and hell now. But in preparation for that sermon, I read a book called Visible and Invisible Games, something like that. And it's this book that was written in the 80s. And the whole premise is this idea of how there's a visible game of competition that's going on in the world at all times. And then there's also this invisible game that is more the beauty of inviting people into the game with us and into the play for the sheer enjoyment. And it's not about winning or losing. It's about the enjoyment of being together and living life. It's a great book. I remember Grace Point ended up doing a book club after it, and most of the people read it and said they liked my synopsis better than the book. That's what Andrew Staples told me. Chris is nodding his head. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but I really deeply enjoyed the book and the thought process. But anyways, I remember saying in that sermon that I was on the Pacific Ocean surfing. I was at a Rob Bell event, and we were out surfing, and I was on the Pacific Ocean, literally looking out at the expanse of the ocean, not back at the shore. And I just had this deep sense of the universe and God saying, life is not a test, life is a gift. It is not a test. And I think our work constantly is trying to make us feel like all of it is a test and you need to be graded. And that breaks my heart, Chris. And I've heard Ben in all the years of his work working feel like the same thing, like you're constantly on a report card. And I think that's true in a lot of our business. And we could have a further discussion on what healthy business looks like, right? And how you can have healthy accountability to what you're supposed to be doing or not doing. Because I believe, and you all know, like we believe deeply in accountability, but it breaks my heart to think that that report card represents for too many of us too often. And that's why I talked about with my conversation with Erica, like I feel like we're being graded by some, you can't quite figure out what the scale is, but you feel like you're failing. And that's where it's like, wait, I need to wrap like my arms around myself and around you, Chris, and around all of us saying like, oh, we're not, this life ultimately, and your life and my life, that we are inherently worthy simply because we're here breathing. And to think otherwise or to measure ourselves against something else is where I think we're failing ourselves in society. Sorry, that was a long response.
No, I appreciate it. And ultimately the message is you are not enough.
Oh.
I am not enough. Yeah.
Right, and that's what we want to combat. Again, for us and for our kid, like for the future. Who else is commenting?
I think about specifically as a teacher, just the way I fell in line and didn't even think about it. And it wasn't until really I moved to Nashville that I really started to be like, oh, these are problematic connections. I need to like ask questions and start to hold, for myself, but also like the greater community that I serve. And I think about the balance of like using your voice when is it I think that's where I have struggled to know when is a time to speak to that, but when is it time to listen. So that balance of that, I just recently wrote like a blog post, if you will, just some education thoughts that I was having. And I was like, still I feel like patriarchy tells me, no, don't do that, because it's going to isolate you. It's going to shut you out of this, of what you've built, and all these people who are, have, put stock in your success as an educator, and then just kind of giving that the middle finger and saying, no, but these are the things we should actually be focused on. And for me to kind of unpack that, that just that image, like that, image of myself, and what giving a shit about what people think, because of these patriarchal things that are, telling me this is my measure, this is my worth, when in reality, that's so not true, like you're saying. So just like speaking to that. And when I speak to it, wow, does that give me so much peace? Wow, does that make me feel like I'm living into my fullest self? And such, it just opens me up. Like even as I was writing a lot this weekend, kind of centering myself for the first day of school, just like, wow, like, do I feel so much more grounded when I'm not like in the hustle and bustle, Chris? And I was doing the same thing, kind of unplugging a little bit more than I normally do, and just how powerful that can be. So yeah, rock on.
Love it. Thank you for all of that. Does anybody else have any commentary, really on any of it, on your experience, on how you're feeling in this moment, on how you've been encouraged as you've chosen to maybe fight against this?
So Mel, there's two thoughts that I have. The first one is that I really like the curiocracy, and I had to Google it because I was like, where did that come from? But I think there's so often that different groups are pitted against each other. Like right now, it seems like white supremacy and patriarchy really like to get like white women and BIPOC people against one another with the Karens and what have you. But looking at it as a curiosity, it's like, it's not like, it's like what they did in apartheid South Africa, is they got all the tribes fighting against each other instead of fighting against their true oppressor. And so I like the idea that there's this like overwhelming curiosity that helps us realize, like, just within our, our own, ism silo, that we are all in this together against the overall power structure that's trying to keep that hierarchy. And then the other thought is kind of tacked onto what Leah said, was the who are you asking permission for? And like being raised as an obedient girl, like that, and also being an Enneagram 9 and I merge, like that's a huge spot for me to try to figure out how do I give myself permission instead of trying to figure out like who do I need to ask for permission. And growing up, it was always my mother. And now as I'm an adult, like it's still her, but there's other people as well.
That's all so good. Thank you, Ashley. I think bringing up the Enneagram, it's just a great reminder of how beautifully different we all are, right? And how our challenges are so different. And Ben, who's listening, he hasn't said anything, so he's not saying this, but I can feel it that I've probably been the one that's never asking for permission in my 8ness, right? And need to lean into accountability more so. But others of you, deeply ask for permission in ways that you shouldn't. So it was such a great reminder of how we're all so different, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, we need to kind of get that 8 and 9 together and find that balance.
100%. Love it. Ben, JJ, Randy, Nathan, Abby, Megan, anything? Again, no pressure, but we have room for you if you would like to respond.
I think there's a lot of different stuff in there. The permission part and the competitive part kind of stuck out to me, but I think for me is what I was really trying to look at a little bit is more how I even participate in it, because I would so often I think for me in any space in life, I'm always looking at what are the rules of the game, right? And so I get really good at playing the game and really good at helping other people play the game instead of like destroying the game, if that makes sense. Like, so in the sense of understanding, like anybody who's, I think you recognize anybody who speaks up that is out with something that's outside of the norm, there is a cost, right? We all recognize that there is a cost. And so it's always a matter of like, how do you weigh the cost of, sorry, my dog is jumping around behind me with a squeaky toy every time I start talking on Zoom. So it's that thing where like, we all recognize that there's a cost. And so I think a lot of times, even for myself, I weigh the costs of like how much to challenge and how much to just like play the game well, because I know the rules, and the rules sometimes give me an advantage. And then, even I thought about the times that I've specifically helped other people, like people of color and people and women also play the game better. Like, so again, instead of like just attacking the game itself, it's like, let's figure out how my way, I think, of subtly trying to fight it is to play the game better. And I think part of even just this challenge in this space is recognizing like that I don't want to just play the game better or help other people play the game better. I want a different game that is more level playing field for everybody, and so that's just kind of, I think that's the part of it, is the part that I wanted to kind of I was meditating on really was what part do I play in this? Like, how have I stepped into it, and how have I used it to my advantage, and how have I also helped other people gain advantage but still not tear it apart, and just acknowledging that in myself. So I don't know, that's what I was thinking about.
I feel all of that. I love that. Thank you, JJ. Anybody else? Anybody else on my porch want to say anything? hope we keep thinking about it, and I hope we keep processing. And as you process any of those questions, and I can post them on the community page to the direct ones that we asked, and then the encouragement from the woman about questioning everything, identifying contradictions and hypocrisy, and getting uncomfortable. If you process more, we would love to hear from you, because we learn together through the processing and through the conclusions too that we all come to. And I love, JJ, what you brought up right here at the end is it's not just about us learning to play the game better and helping each other learn to play the game better. And I've been guilty of that. It is us trying to change the game, where it's best for all of us. So I hope we're encouraged by that. I am. Oh, it's been good to spend the afternoon with all of you. By way of announcements, Megan, I'm so excited you're writing the email that will actually come out a week from tomorrow. Tomorrow's Mind. I just finished it with Malia. Thank you, Malia. And then Body will come out next week with Megan. So please read your emails every Monday as we intentionally create things for you that hopefully challenge and encourage you in your week and set you off for a good week as we do this. Happy Hour is Wednesday. We have a lot of fun every Wednesday, whoever joins, literally talking about whatever. Literally, it can go anywhere. So if you need a good midweek pick-me-up, please join us Wednesdays at 5. We will gather again in 2 weeks for another gathering, and may continue this subject. If any of you want to, I would love to do that. And then we have game night at the end of the month. Also, we have face masks if you still need them. We still have our white face masks with the Connected Responsible Magical on them, and we'll order the black ones once we sell out of the white ones now that black is available. I know some of you are wanting that. Anything else by way of announcements? No? Okay, then grab a glass if you have it, and if not, just open your heart, if you will. I want to end our toast today with an Audre Lorde quote that says, "It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." Oh, Nathan is texting me. I skipped the song. I'm so sorry, Nathan. We'll share that next week. My bad. Back to this. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. So may we learn, right? May we continue to learn to celebrate difference in ourselves and in others, and may we keep working towards a better world. Cheers, friends. We love you. Thank you for being with us. See you hopefully Wednesday, and if not, in the following weeks. Bye.